Cannabis users, hi friends, have I got a message for you? Listen, creative minds deserve creative tools. And Grindini isn't just a grinder, it's a statement piece. Designed for those who care about quality and style, it's perfect for the artist who appreciates the finer things at a very affordable cost. Crafted from high-quality anodized aluminum, and if you're a dum-dum like me and had to look it up, what that simply means that it has a protective layer, Grindini features a strong magnet and rubber seals for a virtually smell-proof design. And the unique curved shape and matte finish makes it as functional as it is beautiful. And it is really cute. I've seen it in person. And you can choose from different colors. You got lavender, forest green. I haven't seen that one, and I would love to see that one because that sounds really cute. Lavender, forest green, or aquamarine. Female founded and inclusive by design, Grindini also gives back. So 10% of its profits support women who have been incarcerated for marijuana misdemeanors. So this holiday season, give your crew a tool that they'll love. And of course, you get a discount if you're a Creative Risk listener. So you have to use code Creative Risk, and it needs to be in all caps, Creative Risk, all caps, for 20% off at grindini.com. 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 Elevate your cannabis ritual and grind in style with Grindini. Listen, I know many of you listening to this have considered getting into voiceover, and why wouldn't you? It's a mobile gig, it's one that's scalable, it's an industry that's constantly booming because of all the, between animation and commercials and audiobooks, it's just nonstop. And so I know you've been thinking about it. And Anna Franco-Duval and her company, Keeping It Reels, can help you. It is a voiceover coaching and demo reel company. So they can help you build reels. They can also do some one-off coaching. They can even help you build your own home studio. Anna has hooked me up. No bullshit. I meet with her every week, actually. I'm not kidding. And she has helped me so much with, because let me just say something about voiceover. I've learned this through Anna. It's one thing to be a good actor, and that is a skill to bring to voiceover. But voiceover is unique unto itself. And Anna has helped me so much in my own discovery of how to develop the actual skill to do voiceover. So I highly recommend you check her out. More information can be found at www.keepingitreelsvo.com. That's keeping without a G, and reels as in real, R-E-E-L. www.keepingitreelsvo.com. And as a Creative Risk listener, you get 10% off any voiceover reel work done by Anna. You can email her at anna@keepingitreelsvo.com and mention Creative Risk.
First off, everyone needs to listen to your podcast. I think you guys are probably my most favorite industry podcast out there, because you guys really teach actors how to actually be entrepreneurs, how to actually market themselves. So I also do feel like every actor should think of themselves as a business person.
Hey all, Mike here. Before we get started with today's episode, I just want to ask you to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell below us if you're watching on YouTube. Or be sure you follow us on your favorite podcast listening app, if that's your preferred way of engaging with the podcast. And if you're feeling extra generous, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We read them all, even the bad ones. So leave a review there. Lastly, if you enjoy Creative Risk and you want to dive deeper, consider joining our Patreon community. We offer 3 membership tiers starting at just $5. As a member, you're going to get early access to ad-free episodes, weekly motivational content, bonus full-length episodes, and much more, including a book club. Come on. But it's more than just content. You'll be a part of a community dedicated to accountability and support, helping you stay motivated and inspired. So head over to patreon.com/Creative Risk Podcast. Check out the description below for that link and sign up today. I know, that's your least favorite thing to do.
What?
Seek support when needed. All right, here we go. Another episode. Here we are.
You shouldn't tease me. That's a very abusive of you.
Oh my god. I got way too deep yesterday into see, you're not into UFOs or anything like that.
Yes, I am. I very much so. But I don't know what that means to be like. I'm not going to like, Arizona to go to the.
Well, what does your
middle of
interest consist of?
I believe they exist. I know. I'm pretty sure they're out there. But it's not going to. I have bigger things in my life to worry about.
I think it is the biggest thing in our lives to worry about.
Why? In what sense? I've got this moment. I want to make sure Michael upstairs is happy for dinner tonight. That's
well, no, it's it's a good question because I was thinking of you because it's an existential question about our place in the universe, on our whole worldview, like everything. I think it's what I appreciate it is, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but you're a very of the material world person, which I think is good.
I don't even know what it means, but I'll take it.
Like, well, I think that you're concerned with practicalities, and which is great, and but I think that
as opposed to impracticalities.
Well, as opposed to like esoteric existential questions about the world.
Yeah, I just don't have time for it. But meaning but actually there's not a value judgment, because here's what my day to day, I'm going to worry about the things that I can move the needle on, the things that I can actively work towards in this life. And that is where I see me making impact. For some people, I understand it's like, what is human existence for? And could be their reason to live.
But where it gets interesting, the conversation, and then I'll shut up, and where I do think it's because, you have medium connections. You're very, like, what is your opinion about, like, being a medium and all of the parapsychology shit? Like, what's your opinion about that?
I guess before I answer that, have we had are you aware? I don't know what you're asking me.
Well, I know that your family has mediums in it. You were trained in medium things. You're like, cut all this.
Well, no, this is a sensitive conversation.
Okay. You have government clearance or something? You don't have government? Is this why is it sensitive?
Well, for many reasons, including things that happened to me as part of this that I'm sensitive about.
Fair enough. Did a ghost rape you?
A ghost, quote unquote, did bad things to me. Yes, they did.
Wow.
When I was a little kid. And so I'm careful when I talk about this.
Because you don't want to invite that energy in.
Well, that's part of it, but also just to be clear, there are many people who don't believe these things. And I don't need other outside validation about my experience and my beliefs when it comes to these things. And therefore, I just don't even welcome in I'm careful who I talk about. So that's why I'm careful to talk about it on a podcast episode. That's where I'm
That's fair. I'll be punished after this. But what's interesting, and then I'll shut up, is that the connection between the government has been studying for a long time, like parapsychology, which is like telekinesis, astral projection, all of these things in relation to UFOs. And there's this working opinion, and this is all declassified government shit, because we've put money towards parapsychology, is that there is like a very strong connection between like otherworldly, like, whether it's mediums or like, out of body, astral projection type meditation and correspondence with these UAPs. There's some link that they're trying to define right now between these two things.
It tracks. It tracks. It tracks.
And so it makes me like, when I hear shit like that, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Because I'm like,
but see, now that's where it doesn't track for me. Like, who cares?
well, because it's like, it's human. The reason why I care is because, per your point, this is the life we have to live, and it's like being closer to some sort of larger consciousness or larger truth and larger reality. I mean, I think that is it doesn't necessarily pay your bills, but it also opens up things like, and we're going to talk about this today with gratitude, which is what the episode's about, but like, like law of attraction, things like, what can we manifest with our minds? Mm-hmm. And, there's a correspondence between people with heightened consciousness in certain parts of their brain to UAP sightings, all of this shit. And I
will not take away your interest, because, it's a similarity. It's like the government, right? In this way. I understand that the government is corrupt. I understand that they lie to us. I understand that, but I don't really care. What I mean by that is, like, that's not my battle in this lifetime. But I do appreciate, for you could have a very different.
Well, why it's slightly different is because the government is of this world. It has nothing to do with higher consciousness or like bettering yourself as a human. Sure. It has to do with the wheelings and dealings of this world we've created.
Yep.
And,
I hear that.
And that's why, to me, it is slightly different.
I
agree, but I'm going to get you into this one of these days.
But just to be clear,
I think it's interesting.
I believe in multi-universes. I believe that there is extraterrestrial life that exists. To me, it feels unfathomable to assume that we are the only living creatures. I'm into it. So,
and do you think we've been visited? Sure. Do you think that they've visited us?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But I don't know. Like I'm interested. I'm not interested to the point where, like, I want to give it more than maybe 45 seconds of my life, besides an interesting documentary that I watch every now and again. But I like it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean,
I'm not trying to negate.
No, I don't think you're negating what I'm saying. It's just like, yeah, I think that it opens up a larger question, and it does relate to this episode, just about where your energy goes, where your energy is going in life, because we're talking about gratitude today because it's Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving. And we're talking about gratitude, which is a very high frequency act.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. No, I think what you just said is a great point, because gratitude is intangible to some extent. And yet the act of practicing gratitude, as we're going to discuss a lot today, has a lot of benefits. And so, to your point about connecting it to, like, essentially things that are bigger than us, above,
correct,
just like the day-to-day monotony of bullshit that
yes, exactly. Well, because what is there in life? Yeah. It's like, it's what is there in life, I guess, because I'll shut up anyway. So but it relates because imagine if you found out, I guess, and why this relates, in my opinion, is if everything you thought was important in the world, success, money, recognition, what if it was all kind of meaningless? If it was proven meaningless, because, when you just really take in the scope of everything, what are you left with? This is kind of a question I've been asking myself as I get deeper into this shit, is what is there left beyond, like, if material success, even if you're fucking Marlon Brando, or if you're fucking Meryl Streep, or, you know, Stella, or like the names that last through history in a lot of ways, and all of that was rendered meaningless, and kind of, you know, if you want to render it meaningless, what are you left with? What are we left with at the end of the day? What is the point? What is the legacy we leave behind? And I do think that gratitude is a part of that. I think that, you know, yeah.
No,
Anyway.
yes, 100%, 100%. And so to talk about why we're talking about gratitude today, you know, I mean, for a lot of reasons, but we're going to become super niche. There's the macro that Mike is bringing up in terms of sort of the, um, um, what is life for? You know, what's at the core of who we are, and what's above all the bullshit we get caught up in day to day. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's the micro as to how it relates to us as people, but specifically as artists. And just to say that we're kind of specifically looking at this the lens of the idea of practicing gratitude as a way to make your day to day as an artist all the more wholesome, fulfilling, positive, all the things that come along with practicing gratitude in a world, our micro world as artists, where it's so easy to get caught up in all of the bullshit. That's what I'm
Yes.
saying. It's a micro.
No,
Because
exactly.
I saw your face of me seeming like I was moving. I am moving
No.
on from, like, because I think the point is made. I'm
No,
tying
no.
it together.
No.
Because I think your point is well made, which is like macro human thought, yes, heard how it relates to aliens and all the how that puts into perspective what the fuck are we doing. But then in our tiny, then we come back down to our menial reality as menial little lay person artists, and we consider that same thought. Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate you trying to bring us back on track. Yes.
No, well, I would also just say, I'd be like, okay, we're talking about elephant tusks. Time to move on.
Yes,
You know,
exactly. Yeah, and no, it's and that's what it really means for me is like, yes, it's you have to practice it in the day to day, but you know, it's more important than just like because what I feel like with gratitude is hard amongst the many things we're going to talk about is like, it feels like one of those things like yeah.
Totally.
And what
totally.
can it get me? Which is actually the opposite of gratitude, is like,
Sure.
what can it get me? How can it, you know, it feels like it's almost like, yeah, I know I have to do those things because whatever, but I'm really doing it to an end of some kind to achieve things, or to, you know, in the self-help world, which I argue we flirt in, it's easy to just dismiss it as like a yeah, whatever. But you know, it's at the center of so many things.
Well,
So,
how are you good at practicing gratitude?
no. I would not say so. I would not say so. I would like to get better. Let's just say
Yeah.
that. Are you good at practicing gratitude?
I don't think so. When
Well-
I really think about like when I was when we were building this, I was like with the outline for like what we'd be exploring and like reading more about it. I'm like, no. Like
Yeah.
I do, like there are some basics. Like I'm certainly a day to day always very polite, meaning like I always express basic gratitudes because I believe in it as a politeness.
Yes, you do
There
that.
are
Yeah.
there are things that I am openly grateful for. I always, I mean, Michael's the most important thing in my life. I always say that, and so he gets, you know, a lot of my gratitude, my gracious. I also think, I just want to say, I think grace goes along with gratitude in some weird
Yes,
way.
100%.
And
Yeah.
I don't think I'm always very gracious with I'm literally thinking about this morning. I'm not going to tell you the story, but I'm literally thinking about this morning something that happened. I'm not very gracious when it comes to, honestly, actually, to your point, the material things in life and like some slip ups and work. I'm not very gracious there. And so I think I could use gratitude to find more grace in a general sense.
And just to say, when you say grace, you mean forgiveness, you mean like
patience,
patience.
And more ease with other people's shortcomings.
Yes.
Because there's more to be grateful for than not.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Well, you think we listed one, but let's talk about some of the benefits. Well, did we even not to take us off track,
No,
but did we
please.
define what gratitude is?
No, you always love to define. I think it's good. I think it's good to define.
Well, because it's just like, I think we all kind of know what it is,
yeah.
but
Well, that's kind of what I mean by grace. I think I would argue it means different things to different people. But go ahead, read
Yeah.
the definition you have.
Well, I like this. I just pulled this up on Google immediately. Gratitude is the act of recognizing and acknowledging the good things that happen, resulting in a state of appreciation. And
Yes.
so, and the reason why I do think you practice a lot of gratitude actually is because you are very good at looking at the glass half full in a lot of ways, and you kind of force yourself to always kind of steer towards the positive things that are going on as opposed to the negatives. So, it's this feeling of thanks and appreciation for good things that have happened and acknowledging those things, and to quote certain sections of the population, to baptize them.
Let me give you an example where I'm not, and because I appreciate you saying that. But an example is me, when Mike will tell you, when I work on things, I I like to strive for 110% if possible. And sometimes we can't always do that. Sometimes we have to be grateful for where we're at and be okay with that, and know that there's much to be grateful for where we are, and that we can build
Right.
down the road.
Well, was goal-oriented
say.
people, and our work, which is very goal-oriented, part of what that means by default, and why I think why quote setting goals can be detrimental to people's mental health, they feel like, is because when you set a goal, something you do not have at this point, you are now working from a framework of, this is where I want to go, this is where I am, and there is a lack.
Yes.
So it's hard, and I think that we all, well, maybe not, it's worthwhile conversation for another time, but I believe that, setting goals in life is, if you expect to survive, is a necessary thing we must do, and survive and thrive and leave an impact and also be the best person you can be. It's important to acknowledge what you are lacking at this point and strive towards it. But the dangers that come with it, and I think it is a real danger, because I find myself doing this when I'm really locked in and striving for things, is that you're working from a framework, at least I find, of lack of all the things I do not have.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that?
Right.
With
exactly. Gratitude
with something that
ambition.
is more important. Yes, something that is more important, which is enjoying your life and enjoying the things that you do have. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. And that's why a lot of very career-oriented people, I'd say half do find this balance, and half of these, that's why Wall Street millionaires are miserable. It's because they're always operating from a place of lack and what they do not have and where they want to go and where they are not, without balancing it from.
And is that not the life of every fucking artist we know? Meaning, I was listening to our episode that when we went back to school, and one of the things we were talking about was unmet potential in visiting school. And I say it because the thing about artists, very, very rarely do you find an artist with small dreams. They have big dreams.
Yeah.
And even with the hills that come along with being an artist, and you're working right now, I've got something coming up in a little bit, things to be grateful for. There's always that sense of, well, are you prepared for 7 weeks from now when this is done?
Right.
Meaning it's hard to, it's the weird, and this is the big word that for me, the balance of staying present in the moment of of and grateful for the work that we have in the moment,
Right.
and also, and it's funny, sorry, I'm
And the
being
fact
really
that we get to
tangential.
do it. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm going to be super tangential for a quick second. Mike and I were talking some while ago about social media and how when we're on a job, how we don't, I said this to you, I find I'm less likely to be sharing my work when it is easiest to do so, aka when I am working, than when I am not, because I'm so, and I will use the word, grateful to be making art, to be making money making art, that I don't want to spoil it, right? By adding in this other thing that feels like it somehow works against it. It's a random thought, but it's
No,
tied
I
up
think
for me
it's a
in
great
gratitude,
point. Well, I
you
think it's
know?
actually a really good point because it's like, exactly. And it's like, so, the question is how do we reframe, which is a conversation for another time, but like reframe good business practices with, not from it's because I want to get things I don't have,
Exactly.
but it's a,
Exactly.
oh fuck, my
Yeah.
microphone fell. But how do we reframe it
Yeah.
as potentially, you know, a way of expressing gratitude, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
when we are investing in ourselves, advocating for ourselves, fighting for ourselves, maybe that is a form of gratitude as well,
Ah, very
potentially,
fair. Very
as
fair.
opposed to, because the opposite is fear, right? The opposite of gratitude is probably would be fear in a lot of
Uh-huh.
ways, which is
Uh-huh.
which is not a quote bad emotion to have, but yeah, okay. But let's talk about some of these benefits here of gratitude.
Yeah.
Why do we even need to practice it?
Well, then, and just to say, in preparing for this episode, obviously, again, I don't think there's going to be a human being on Earth except for sociopaths like Trump that would maybe not fully understand the
Sure.
value of gratitude. But but there's actually a lot. So and I do think this is actually probably one of the biggest ones, is an overall better emotional and mental state. Because let's talk about what practicing gratitude can do in relation to it. Well, we live in a state of uncertainty. A few days ago, uh, I get a lot of avail checks for workshops, a lot of which you don't audition for. They'll just be like, "Oh, is Joshua available?" And the reason what happens is because casting puts together lists, wants to make sure the actors are available, and then goes back to the creatives and say, "Here's who we have available." Now, why do I say this? Because this was for a 2-week gig that I really wanted. It was going to start 3 days ago, and so I got the avail request, and I knew a bunch of the creative team. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get this. I'm going to have this gig. Didn't get it. It didn't get it. It's obviously we live in this state of uncertainty. So practicing gratitude in this constant state of uncertainty allows allows Mike to do the work he's doing right now. No, uh, are you? But only because I want you to respond to this. I can hold.
No. I no, I'm listening to. I'm looking up this word that I was about to use, but
So we live in a state of uncertainty. So practicing gratitude can allow you to truly find ways to limit the stress that you're focusing on, because there's so much more good in your life than if you're basing everything predicated on, oh, this 2-day shoot, this short film I got, this 6 weeks of it. If our whole life is based on that,
yeah,
then we'll live in a constant state of stress.
right,
Subsequently,
right, right, right.
subsequently, practicing gratitude simply allows us to live in a happier, more joyous place. I mean, to your
Yeah.
point, not to pat myself on the back, But to your point about work and practicing gratitude as part of it, and trying to stay positive, it's like you do actually have a choice in any
Yeah.
scenario to go, this is bad or this is good.
Yeah.
Good,
That's a
and
good
those
point.
in very loose terms.
You know, what I think you're right about too is, what you're saying is that our lives by default, maybe is one way to look at it, are going to be stressful, uncertain, full of rejection, hopes up, hope squashed. And so that's like, really what we're talking about is what the default of this business is a lot of times is wanting things and not getting them. So, and so the best, that's just inherent in what we do. And if we don't, and it's so easy to let that sort of bleed into everything else, I think that, you know, there's something, and the happiness thing is true. There's something, it's called cognitive something, or like frequency illusion, where it's like, you've heard this probably, where it's like you buy a red Volkswagen, and then you start seeing red Volkswagens everywhere, right? And it's like your what you think about and what you are framing and centering and giving energy to, your life starts to reflect that because it's present in your mind. So if you are always thinking about the things you did not get, and if you're always thinking about failures or missed opportunities, then that's how you're going to fucking see everything. Whereas if you are, this is so slight, but I'm going to say it because it's just because you shared a story about that workshop thing. I have a buddy who just dropped out of a show because he booked something on Broadway, and he's recommending me for the job. Now, what's you know, there's of course a likelihood I could get it. There's not, but like I didn't even take the time. Like this dude wrote such a nice letter to the company, and like had a paragraph just about like my, about why I could do the role, and was very complimentary towards me and my, and I was like, oh, that's so nice, but I kind of just brushed right by that, and I'm like, okay, am I going to book this thing? Am I going to get this thing? I didn't even take the time to sort of go like, holy shit, like looking
I
at
have
that,
people who believe in me,
who
who are
believe in
willing to
me,
fight for
who are
me.
saying
Yes.
to like, who are, and it's like,
Yeah.
and it's so sad because we're in such a, per your point, this uncertain, like, am I going to get it or not? Am I going to
Right.
get it or not? That we can skip over the fact that you were even avail checked for these fucking things. It's like we can skip over those things. Like, it's so hard to actually give those fucking things energy because we're so focused on, surviving and living. And so, yes, it will definitely lead to more happiness, more, just and more validation for yourself on some ways, and just being like, oh, not
Well,
everything's working against me.
to your point about essentially the law of attraction, which is not, which is I'm using that word in a very general, or that idea in a very general sense, but a sense of self-worth. And just to say, keeping, as we have here, keeping your focus on you, meaning
Right.
and not just like me, instead of comparing, and again, this idea of a lack of want. If you, to your point, oh, whether or not I get that job, how amazing it is that I have someone who sees me and is willing to go for bat for me. That is major, and I would argue is much more important than whether or not you get the gig that'll last X, Y, or Z amount of months.
Right. And based off of keeping it like, it's just concerning it with you is like, as opposed to constantly looking at what other people have that you don't, right? Which is, look, there's nothing wrong with looking at what other people have and being curious about how they got it, or, is like aspiring to people, or wanting to, take people's good qualities. But again, we need to counterbalance. Every time I feel like we do that, we should counterbalance it with like, well, what do I have? What are the things in my life that I have? I can't control what other people have. What are the things that I have in my life? And per your point, it
Exactly.
keeps us focused on things that are more within our control as well. It's like, and comparison is the worst fucking game to play in this. I think really comparison really is one of the most dangerous. I don't think I think it's comparison when done right can be very good. Because I think it's needed, but how most of us use comparison. Why did they get it? I didn't. What are they doing that I'm not? Those are not bad questions to ask on the whole, but we use those things to I mean, it takes us down. It takes us down. It makes us less happy. It makes us feel like, keeps us out of growth mindset, keeps us more in like, oh, this is inherent. This is how it's always going to be or some shit. And so, yes, like practicing gratitude keeps the attention on you. If you're craving music that feels both timeless and brand new, it's time to listen to Join the Wildfire. This NYC band, born from the artistry of my friend Samantha Joy Perlman, delivers songs that speak to the soul and cut through the noise of everyday life. Their debut single, Tears in Brooklyn, which is playing right now, captures the bittersweet beauty of longing, while their latest release, Shouldn't I Be Older, explores the universal ache of growing up too fast, or not fast enough. These tracks showcase Joy in the Wildfire's ability to blend nostalgia with emotional depth, creating music that resonates. I mean, I totally bop to both these songs. I really love Shouldn't I Be Older. I'm excited for their debut album, which is coming out in early 2025. It's being produced and mixed by Jonathan Jetter of Right Angle Recording and mastered by Nomograph Mastering, whose credits include work with Taylor Swift, St. Vincent, and Sabrina Carpenter. I mean, this album is going to be fucking dope. Get on the bus early. Listen to Tears in Brooklyn and Shouldn't I Be Older now on all major platforms, because soon these guys are going to blow up. Be cool. Get on the bus early. Check them out. They're awesome. Yeah.
And it also, I think this is interesting too. I think it does help build a sense of resilience. Meaning,
Yes.
When you don't get something, it's so easy to go down that track. Well, why?
Yes.
What do I not have? Why don't they do that? As opposed to, well, and I get it. These are big leaps for us to go. Well, I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to be in the room to audition. I'm grateful I was even in consideration.
That I got to do my work or whatever.
That I'm grateful that I got to do my work. That I get to be creative and still make art. I love that idea of building resilience. I do think that practicing gratitude. This is true. Practicing gratitude allows you to sleep better, and it lowers inflammation and helps with heart health. And the reason I'm bringing this up in relation to this is because I do think that working from a place of lack, stress, all the things that I don't have that are working against me, it affects our physical body. It's funny. I wrote this down, time to dream along better sleep, because I've never told anybody this, that I do this really weird thing. I love sleeping, but I love going to sleep
I love
at
it.
night. And I literally have this phrase sometimes that I say that's like, okay, it's time to dream. And before I go to bed, I sort of daydream before I dream. So I daydream.
That's good.
About the, also, I just got a thing from the BBC. NASA spacecraft searching for alien life on a mysterious moon of Jupiter blasts off from Florida.
I won't say
No, we're not
anything.
going down that path. Yeah. But I say time to dream, and I start to dream about all things potential, and I find myself that I do dream about the things that I daydream about the things that I am really happy about that have happened in my life or that day. And
Right.
the reason I say this is because I, I like look, it like puts me in a better state to sleep.
That's called like what? That's like I forgot, not intention, not lucid dreaming, but it's something like that. Like where you
I
set
don't
an
know.
intention before bed. No, that's no, that's a practice, where I think that's cool that you do that because it's like, yeah, you set a
It's a little
practice.
embarrassing, to be honest with you, that I
I don't
do it,
think
but
no, it's well, the sports psychology book that like I'm obsessed with, which I think is like the best book on acting somebody could read. That's the very first thing he says. He says he has all athletes, premier athletes, lucid dream, basically. And set intentions before they bed, wake up, keep a dream journal. And the reason why he does that is because the subconscious is fucking it's driving everything in the back. It's fucking driving everything. It is the thing we don't know that's happening that frames our entire fucking lives. And so it's important that when you are going to sleep and engaging with your subconscious, that is the time to really engage and let your subconscious take over. How are
Mm.
you keeping that like in the direction that you want your life to be about, whether it's
Well,
and yeah, so it
and
makes sense.
I might talk about this person later on. And this person, by the way, is a specific person I'm thinking about, but this could apply to many people. Think about all the artists that would go like, ugh, what's the point? Is
Sure.
it worth it? No one cares. No one's going to see that thing. No one's really going to give me a chance. They're just going to give it all to so and so. The person who lives in a state of all that's working against them. And to be clear to your point, because it might come up again later on when we talk specifically career stuff, but in relation to this, like if you and not to diatribe onto morning and evening routines, but how you start your day, how you finish your day,
Exactly.
it really does kick off what's to come, and is probably more important than we may realize. Okay, so the other thing of practicing gratitude in relation to your relationships, so both personally and professionally, in a macro sense, practicing gratitude builds connection. Let your
Right.
collaborators know that you appreciate them. I'm even talking about, it's funny, I'm thinking about a show, a couple of shows I've done, but was one most recently where the person I was working with continued to express to me, "Oh, I'm so great. I love working with you. I
Yeah.
so appreciate you doing this and that. I so much." And you really, what a nice thing to receive, for someone to express gratitude to you, but for you to do the same thing for
Oh
other
God.
people that
Why
you're
is it
working
hard?
with.
Because it's so hard to do that. I find it hard to do that. Like in a process, well, I'm thinking about, and by the way, this is not the default. What's so funny is when you're doing a show, my opinion is actors are primed to see the bad. How the room is being run. Oh, we're behind on this. What's the director doing?
I agree with
We are
that.
the theater, the company
Uh-huh.
management, whatever. We're
Uh-huh.
always primed.
Right. To bitch
I
and
I
moan.
would say I would say 75% of actors are primed to
Sure.
be fear-based during a process
Or negative in general.
or negative in general. Gossip,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
looking at the negatives, and it's like, and it's hard and it happens. Look, I'm gonna be kind of whatever here, but I am somebody who people often, when I do a process, though, they're always very complimentary towards me, other
Mm-hmm.
actors especially, and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard for me for some reason
To return that?
to return that.
What
I
is
don't
that
know.
based on, you think?
I don't.
Like what's the feeling that comes up like weakness or embarrassment or
I have no idea. It might be selfishness in some ways. It might be like, frankly, it might be like when somebody is, yeah, maybe it's like I'm afraid of putting somebody above me, or like it's not something I do a lot in process with people. I don't take the time to say fucking killed it, or that's hilarious, or part of it, well, this is why part of it too, it's because when people do that, if it's nice, it feeds my ego, but also I don't like to be in a set up sort of this feedback loop of of when people, it's like when people say, it's like one of the worst things that somebody could do as far as I'm concerned sometimes is when they say, "Oh, I love it when you did this," or "I love it when you," or "You're so
sure,
funny,"
of
or "You're so,"
course.
because
Yeah, right.
it gets you in
Right.
your head about the moment or about it being perceived. And so I try not to get into like a validation loop with people. I do think that that's part of it. I try to avoid that, maybe because I'm so desperate for it and I know that it affects my work greatly. So I don't want to, although when people compliment me, I'm, of course, please, that's all I fucking want. But
But you know what? Let me offer this too, because I actually totally, I think, here's why I think they're slightly divergent. There's kind of what you're talking about too, which is like the feedback of like the work you're doing. But and I'll actually say who it is because it's a compliment. The lead of of Tootsie, Kyle Anderson, the sweetheart. Um, he was always expressing gratitude for to me for not specific moments, but he's like, I'm so grateful that, because he had just done it. He's like, that we get to reimagine it together, and you're so open talking about me. And he's like, and I love the way you sort of challenge me, and I'm just really grateful.
Yeah.
And that means to me that's different than, oh, your song is so funny, especially when you do
Sure.
that.
Yes. Yes. No, it's a great point because, and there, and also people, it's, yeah, there's a way to do it that's earnest. I think part of it, and the reason why I don't do it too, is because oftentimes it's perceived as being false or blowing smoke or something. And let me just say this is why it's important to understand what you think good work is. What is good work? And what are your values so that you can speak to them,
Sure.
in an earnest, authentic way. And yeah,
Let me
yeah.
also just use an example of in relation to relationships. I'm thinking about today. So I'm happy to say, and we can bleep or whatever, but I was annoyed. I was annoyed today because there's a project that I didn't get seen for, and I'm writing to my reps, and I immediately send an email to all three of to Rashad and my agents, and it's a little what the fucky, especially with this specific project. I'm like, what the fuck? What's my point? I didn't. I could have also ended it by saying,
I'll
like,
bleep it out, but can I guess what the project is?
you want to guess?
Yeah, I'll
Sure.
bleep it out.
Well, no, I'm going in for that.
Oh, that's great.
Is it this? You talk the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't no. Are you going in for it?
I tried.
Oh, well, that I'm going in for. No. This is for um, uh, which is,
Oh yeah.
and again, we'll have to bleep all this, but and bleep this next name, but texts me, and he's like, hey, um, do you have an idea for X? He's looking for material. And I was like, oh, what about this? And he's like, okay, please tell me, what are you doing? He's like, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing. Didn't get an appointment. And the reason why this is annoying to me too is like anything British is like right, the sensibility is like right up my alley. Like but that's because,
Yeah, you should.
and I'm sorry, now I'm going from a lack of working from a place of lack. You have to bleep this too. Always has been dismissive of me. And so I'm pissed about that, and I'm pissed that my reps couldn't get me, and I'm pissed. But what's the back of what I'm really trying to make? Even in my email, I could have ended it with, "Thank you for potentially putting in the extra time," because I'm asking for them to push, or thank you for doing a little more work to try to understand why I'm not going in. Or thank you for considering how we might better the relationship with casting so that in the future, like saying little things like that.
And how do you? Well,
Expressing
I'm going to
gratitude.
challenge you now.
Yeah.
What I think gratitude is again, not setting up the result. So it's almost like when I like, thank you so much for your prompt. It's like when people like end emails being like, thank you for your prompt, like for your reply, or thank you for your, it's like, well, that's you low key saying do it. And it's like, how, that's not real gratitude. It's like, or is it? I mean, it's like when you have a setup of an ask, right? It's like, how do you, because I think it's a really good example of how do you practice gratitude in that moment, which is, without that's a hard one because it's like, you could say, because you have to lead these people, you have to express this is business, you have to express your wants, your needs. When people don't perform, it's like, do you take maybe,
But then, for example, but I know I'm glad you're bringing this up. But could both be true? As in, there's I would say the micro, actually, is the appointment or lack thereof. As in, what I want is an appointment, and so I can make that clear. But then the macro could be more about, well, I still want you to know that we're a team and that I value you guys.
Or like, what's been working with with them lately? Is it like, have you been getting a lot of appointments in general? So, have they been getting you a lot of appointments in general? That would be an example of something you can express gratitude for. Is like, you guys have been, why are you smiling?
Well, because Rashad. Anyway, it's another conversation for another time.
But it's like, but if that was the case, which I don't know if it's true.
Yes.
Is it like, I'm, is it, do you say like, I appreciate how much I've been going out lately in general for things. And, it's not lost on me that you guys are out there pushing for me in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
So how do you actually, before you send that email and react, just take the moment to go, well, what can I be grateful for in this moment? Beyond, if this doesn't work out, what can I be appreciative of in this moment? What is working? What, it's hard to do.
That's a good example of what you just said of like, okay, well, before I react, what if there's a moment of like, oh, well, before I send this, just practicing gratitude. What am I grateful for? So I'm annoyed about X, Y, or Z. But what am I grateful for when working with my team? And if I can muse on that, I bet you I would write a different email.
Yes, 100%. And it doesn't take away, but what you always hear is, what you always, is like bluntness is appreciate, bluntness, practical. Let's get right to the point. Let's get da 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 da. I hear that. I hear that because so much of the time when we're not getting to the point and we're sort of being overly da da da, it's a way to sort of butter people up, or it's looked as sort of ingenuine or like as da da da. And it's like people always say, I appreciate that somebody gets right to the point. They're blunt or whatever, which is good. But you and I have also expressed when we get emails from people that are like that, it puts a sour taste in our mouth.
Well, and so it has a lot to do with our industry too. Our industry is a weird, it's everybody involved, representation, actors, directors. There's like there's like a different game that has to sort of be explored.
Because let me say this is there's a really strong difference between, let's say, when I'm sending a pitch email to casting. I mean, for this project you just mentioned, I'll come up. I always try to frame a compliment, or always try and frame, but it is disingenuous because it's actually not coming from it's coming from a people pleasing place. It's coming from a like me or consider me place. What if I took the time, that show that we just talked about, what would it be like as opposed to like pitching and being like, oh, I've heard so much about you over the years and love the projects you work on, which is a kind of like a people pleasing place. What if I were to go, well, what can I be grateful for right now from this person I don't even know? One thing I just do want to say, I think it's great that you guys are doing this project. The show that this person's about, I think their story deserves to be told in a lot of ways. I appreciate that, not to give away too much about it's about this community of people. It's about this, this very specific community. This about and the sort of the untold family dynamics of this story. And, I'm so happy that this show is coming to Broadway. And,
let me also say this as part of what it might not be easy. And let me be clear what I mean.
No.
Sometimes these things, whether it's crafting an email like that, expressing gratitude, relationship building, it's going to take a little bit of work. In fact, it's funny. I've gotten very, very good at emails. Like I've gotten very, very good, but let me say,
I'm pretty decent at them, but
sometimes they take me, I can move quickly through them because I've written enough of them, but sometimes they'll take me 45 minutes because
they should,
I'll
especially
step
a
away.
fucking pitch email. Yeah, go. Sorry.
No, I'll step away. I'll read it again. I don't know. Maybe sometimes I'll finish it. I'll schedule it. I'll come back to it because it's not always. They're not. And I guess the point that I'm underlining for our listeners is just because, and this is a big thing I always say, with so much elements of our work, just because it doesn't just roll off the tongue. Just because whatever the effort is doesn't just come like second nature doesn't mean that there's something wrong with it.
Or inauthentic. Right.
Or inauthentic.
Well, just that's gratitude in general, isn't it? It's like, I don't think it's a default. It's something that needs to be worked at. But that's what's 100%. It's interesting that we're talking about this because so much of the time we're asking. So much of the time we're in a state of asking. And we try to, and it's very easy to surface level sort of edit, frame these emails as gives in some way. But I think a really good framework, even for a fucking pitch to be seen for audition, is even this person I do not know. What can I be grateful for? What can I be grateful for? And pushing yourself to really find the thing. I mean, if you can do that, in general your life will get better. But that's something that I'm even like thinking about in general is the opposite of gratitude is getting, I think, in so many ways. It's a focus on the get. I
like the point that you made about what we have to be careful of in talking about this is it's not just about gratitude to get, because then it kind of defeats the point. Correct. So I like that you're underlining that it's like, I'm not going to express gratitude in this email so that I'm more likely to get the appointment. That's a nice benefit. But I want to express gratitude because I want to be a person who leads from a place of grace and gratitude.
I'm doing it for me, like in this email example this pitch example, when you're sort of pounding out these fucking emails. Yes. And I'll like bleep it. But like, yeah, it's like, like I said, that show, it's like, I'm very aware of that story. And like, it's about Italian Americans and it's about like sort of all of these things that, my grandfather had to change his name when he was trying to be a singer. It's just like there's, and it's cool that this story is being lifted up. And I could say, and just be like, why am I grateful that this person is doing this? I'm doing that for me, even more so than I'm doing it for him. I'm not doing it so he goes, oh, I want to consider this. Oh, well, now it's like, actually, if I'm going to take the time to send this email, make this ask, let me also use it as an opportunity. A good rule of thumb, which whatever, take it or leave it, is anytime I make an ask, anytime I need to make an ask, for me, let me also use it as a moment to acknowledge what I've been given, to acknowledge what has been given. Let me also do that. That's a really good practice to build any time you need to make an ask.
Well, it's making me think just about values, being value driven. And to your
Yeah.
point, even if someone reads it as like, oh, this guy's being a tryhard or whatever, just to say, I'm really big on intention myself, meaning if your intention is to be like, no, I'm having an interaction with this person, let me express some sense of gratitude. And again, that might take a moment to think about. What this is also then in the final, in terms of relationships, this idea of empathy. And I want to talk about this in terms of gratitude as allowing us to become more empathetic to even others in a process. So because I'm thinking about your point about people giving feedback loops, and in processes, I believe we could be more gratitude driven in knowing where people are in their process of discovery, big choices, whatever it is, and being open to that, and then subsequently encouraging and supportive of other people, just because we can be grateful for maybe their willingness to make a choice, their willingness to be bold. You know what I mean?
I think it's a good point. Well, it's like, I mean, it's funny because, the empathy piece, I know a place. I know a place. But I know a place where, like, there were some issues at the theater, okay, like with company management. And a lot of the and a lot of the actors were very, you're laughing. I think I know why you're laughing. But
yes, you know why I'm laughing.
Yes, but I know a place where, and but so many of the actors, there's two groups of these actors. Some of the actors are very like, I don't want to get in like I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. These people are paying my bills. Listen, I'm just gonna like keep my head down and get through it. That's one group of people. The other group of people is very like, advocate-y, or very, they want to be the advocates. And for the people, which I would be more inclined to do, is like keep my head down, just get through it, whatever, grateful for the opportunity. The reason why that is actually still not good, in my opinion, is because it's coming from a place of fear. It's coming from a place of, let me, if the director, if I'm working with a director who I think is a little unhinged or is untrustworthy or whatever, I don't want to raise alarm. I want to be grateful because I want to work here again, or whatever the fuck. That breeds resentment, because now you're actually stifling those feelings and forcing something that's not really there out of fear.
Yes.
Whereas I feel like this empathy point is interesting because, and we'll talk about this when we talk about how to practice gratitude, there can be acknowledgement of the negatives, but then really asking yourself, well, what can I be appreciative of in this moment? Again, from a place of not for them, not out of fear of my job, not because I don't want to be labeled as difficult, not because I want to be labeled all of these things, and because I want to play nice, which is, again, fear-based. For me, for my own mental health and happiness, let me take a moment. And the reason why I think it's important to frame it like for me too is because, again, I'm not expecting any sort of result out of it. It's like, just for me, for my sanity, let me take a moment to find something to be appreciative of the person in the moment. Because I think I know I'm kind of hitting this point too much, but it's like there is a big difference between gratitude from fear, forcing gratitude out of fear, which I feel like is actually something a lot of people do, and because I may not get this again, or because I don't want to da 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 da, versus, for me and for my happiness and my values, I try to always
Well,
find something to be appreciative of.
I am old enough to remember when I would not be talking to you, fellow cannabis compadres, about any tools to help you out. But here we are. Progress has been made. And our friends at Grindini have a special offer for Creative Risk listeners. And the thing about Grindini is that they create a grinder that is not just a grinder. It is a beautiful statement piece because it is specifically designed for those who care about quality and style. And it is really cute. It comes in lavender, forest green, or aquamarine, and it's really well made. It has this high quality anodized aluminum and has a magnet and rubber seals that really help to prevent any potential smell, as well as a beautiful curved shape and matte finish. And it's female owned and founded. And it's inclusive by design. So all of the profits that Grindini takes in, 10% of those go to support women who have been incarcerated for marijuana misdemeanors. So gift it this season because you'll love it and it's a good cause. And of course, you get a discount. Use code Creative Risk in all caps, Creative Risk in all caps, for 20% off at grindini.com. That's grindini.com. Grindini.com. I love saying the name. Grindini. Grindini. Elevate your cannabis ritual and grind in style with Grindini. Let me also say this. I'll try to put it into words and you'll tell me if I'm being clear or not. One of the things, and this goes back to Scott Rudin marching in the streets. Oh, he was mean to his assistant, get him in jail or whatever. And I am minimalizing it, by the way, because I'm not saying that he should have repercussions, but the whole marching, whatever. Now, here, artists look for outlets a lot of times, I think, in some ways to like claim power back. It is easy to go into a process, I think, and I am speaking a bit generally, so I don't think this applies to everybody, but I do think it is easy sometimes to go into a process and to use bitching and moaning as a way of creating a normalization of the life they're living in the moment, to reclaim power and to make it, to hide the trauma of the last 7 months of the lack of work. I'm making this all up right now.
I think it's a phenomenal point. Yeah.
And so I think that there's like a mindset that's like, oh, I'm on set. Oh, why do I have to be here at 5 a.m.?
Well, okay, you know what else it is?
I think you're filming a television show.
Well, you know what else is, which I think is really actually an interesting point, especially with cancel culture, is we don't want to muddy the narrative. And so this is what I mean by that. If there are genuine issues, okay, with a Scott Rudin or with a theater or with a director or with a whatever, if there are genuine issues, we are afraid that if we take that moment to also acknowledge the good, I'm thinking, I'll say it because I don't care, but it's like, there's this, I'm not connected to this group, but like there was this guy who ran, I want to have him on the podcast. I forgot his name. I think it was called Latinx, like Musical Theater Lab. This guy got canceled basically in the Latino community. And I don't think she would mind me saying, but who's very progressive is like, what the fuck happened? Like, this is fucking bullshit.
Is he based in New York?
Yes.
Okay.
But he got like canceled in the community for seemingly real no accusations. And there was no acknowledgement that this guy also did all of this great shit and no appreciation there. And why? I think part of it is exactly what you're talking about. It's like, I think that we are prone to be defensive, to be victims in a lot of ways, but also in this cancel culture moment, where a lot of things probably for the better are being challenged, and power structures are being, should an actor arrive at 5 a.m. to shoot a television show and sit around for 10 hours? I understand. Yes, I'm just positing something here. Maybe there is a better, more respectful way to use the actor's time that should be advocated for. Because there's nothing wrong with changing systems to work better for everybody.
Of course.
So like, just to use that example, there might be a better way, and it might not be let me just finish this point, which is, it might not be the most respectful way to do it, hypothetically. But like, what we're afraid of is if we also let gratitude in addition to, like, but I would also like to see some changes. There should
weakens the stance. Whereas,
exactly.
This is the reason it makes no sense to me. It's because I think it does the opposite. Meaning, actually, this is like a personal question for you and I, but I'm just curious. This is like sometimes when we disagree on something.
No, it's good.
Yeah, you're right. It's sometimes from my perception, if I don't say exactly the thing that you're like, no, that's that thing, it's like we're in opposite camps, as opposed to both can be true.
Exactly. Nuance. Yeah.
Exactly. But to your point, like, if we're having a disagreement about something, but here's why I'm actually trying to underline your point.
No, yeah.
Which is, if you say to me, I see your point, actually, these are the good points. This is the good that we're talking about. And then here are my points. To me, that's a more powerful move to make.
It's a good, yeah, I completely, but it feels like a concession. This is kind of also where it feels like, if somebody were to come out, an assistant to come out about Scott Rudin and say, listen, he was abusive. He did things that he threw a computer at me or whatever the fuck he did. But I also just want to acknowledge that this person has also done a lot of, I mean, I could not imagine that. It's like somebody doing that, but the fear is that it's a concession, that it weakens your point, it weakens your stance, that we need to paint things in a very clear good, bad. And gratitude, again, forcing ourselves, again, it's for us. It's not for, I really don't believe, and I agree with you from a business standpoint, it's smarter, although it may not feel that way. But, for us, it's just a better reality to live in. It's a more uncertain reality, certainly. It's a more gray reality. It's a less binary reality, certainly. But, I think it ultimately leads, when you're rigid, like, this is the way it is, the business is unfair, or this is not right, or I should have gotten this, that person should have, whatever, this person was abusive. When you live in a very rigid reality, whether it's whatever that reality is, if there's rigidness in your life is not rigid, life is fluid. So you're fighting the current and the nature of reality. And so no matter what your beliefs are, if you're rigid, you're going to be finding a lot of discomfort, a lot of things like, getting, a lot of things getting, whatever, stuck for you or whatever the fuck. So makes sense.
Let's talk about gratitude in relation to, in terms of careers, because this is from a productivity standpoint. If you're feeling motivated, if you're feeling grateful and positive, you're going to feel more inclined to continue to put in the work. Focusing on a positive, focusing on gratitude promotes a growth mindset. And this can turn into action. This is exactly what I was talking about. And I'm going to say a name, so just jot down bleep or whatever. But, biggest problem.
This is a name we've had to bleep so many times.
I know.
I feel like it's the number. I'm just going to make a podcast episode where I have their name, and it'll be like an hour and a half long. It'll just be, every time their name is said, it'll just be that. And then we should send it to them. This is the number one name I have to bleep out.
Because because it's been so, oh my God, it's been a journey. Um Working with this person. But it's because but this is what I'm talking about in terms of focusing on this is someone who has so much, who has had so much opportunity, who has been on Broadway, who has come from a huge support system, that 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 had a family that took care of them, that has been, and there are people out here who are, and I know it's a bit subjective and person to person, but this person's inability to focus on all the good and all the gratitude has completely stopped them in their tracks.
Now I'm going to challenge you.
Okay.
What's something you're grateful for that person? What is that person giving? What's something you can appreciate for that person? Is you don't have to answer it now, but
well,
this
I
is
will,
sort of
because I've learned a lot from them. I've learned a lot from them because of how long I've worked with them for. I've learned a lot about myself. They act as a mirror. Oh, as a reminder. Oh, don't go there. Don't go there, because I see what happens.
yeah.
I've no
So
really
maybe like a way to frame this, and because like I said, like it's an interesting exercise. Is anytime I say anything, not that you're saying something negative about, I think everything you're saying is true. But it's like anytime we do that, we see something a person is lacking. It might also be useful to see what a person has. And it sounds like to me, this, which is probably very difficult for this person, but it's like, oh, this person is going through it, so I don't have to. In some ways, this person, maybe the gratitude is like, this person is still here, they're still around, they're still pushing in some regard, and they are dealing with, although, like, in terms of support, privilege, these things, they may not have to deal with that. Obviously, this person is dealing with a lot of demons. And so what a gift that, what a blessing, there, but by the grace of God go I, that they have to deal with all of those things, or they're dealing with all of those things, and I'm learning from them, and they're still here and still going. Like, I say that not to like call you out, but just to say, like, in terms of real time, how do we, it's difficult. Like,
no.
it's not a hard, and already this, when I take that stance on this person, it improves I feel better. I feel better, and I feel more empathetic. But your point is well made, which is that about the career stuff. If
Productivity.
productivity, but also like if you acknowledge the things that you have, it instills belief in you that there is more possibility. Right, it's the growth mindset that you're talking about. If you are operating from a place of a lack of gratitude and I don't have all of these things, then you are probably setting yourself up that anything that you would want to aspire to or impact you want to make in the future is probably not possible because you have nothing right now. And so there's possibility behind
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. Which again, that's, and this, you can, isn't it fun to work from a place of what's possible as opposed to a place of what's not?
Yes, it is.
And so that's why I think of the productivity thing. But this actually comes back to a point you were making up, which is essentially the law of attraction. Because if you're practicing a sense of gratitude, you're going to attract opportunity. And we're gonna bleep this name out too. Super interesting to me, because there was a moment when she was sort of, really having some heat, right? In terms of like, oh, who's this person? Da-da-da. That's gone out the window. And a large part that's gone out the window because there's such a negative person. And they always focus on what they don't have. And they're so always actively expressing their lack of gratitude that people don't want to work with them. It has affected their reputation. And so when you're talking about what I'm attracting into my world, think about that. You want to be, to to your point about that place with the people who are in two different camps, think about the people you want to work with in the future. You for sure don't want to work with some of those people that you know are going to be nothing.
Jump to negatives.
Jump to
Jump to
negatives.
negatives. You
You know
don't.
for
Nobody
sure you don't
wants to
wanna do
work
that.
with people who jump to negatives or jump to. It hurts morale. I think that's a great relationship point, but it's true. And the other thing is, with the law of attraction is, look, the law of attraction is real in the sense that it's what we're talking about with the subconscious. Like our mind is a muscle that we can train, and if you
Yes.
are training yourself to if you're putting out good vibes, then you will see the good and you will see the opportunity. I mean, this is part of like why the plan is such a powerful tool, is because all it is awareness, in the sense of when you have
Great
all of
point.
your goals laid out, you have all of your
Great point.
relation, all of these things laid out. All of a sudden, your life, which seemed like nothing was happening, now everything is an opportunity because you're aware,
Exactly.
because you see the
Exactly.
connection between all of these things. So
Exactly.
you're able to take advantage of opportunities because you see them when they come, no matter how
Yep.
small they are.
Yep.
It's the same thing with that is the law of attraction. As if you are seeing things as opportunities, as gifts. If that is how you are viewing your life and you're grateful for them, guess what? You're going to see more of those out there and be able to actually leverage them. Whereas, and leverage them in a business sense, and take maybe something that's the smallest glint of your eye and blow it up to something larger, because you're training yourself to see those things. And that is what, breaks are everywhere. I just have to say that breaks are everywhere. There is nothing but breaks. There is nothing but opportunity. And truthfully, when I there is no lack of options for anybody, especially now. I mean, there's social media, there's self-producing, there's how many relationships, the accessibility of relationships. I mean, there is more opportunity than there has ever been. And I know that sounds like, you hear people saying this and it's like, as the world
Yes.
burns, but
Yes. Oh, yes.
it is true. There are more opportunities available to artists now than ever before. Like I do
agree.
believe that. And if you if you acknowledge that, then guess what? You're solution oriented. You're seeing those things as opposed to seeing all of the things that are lacking or whatever the fuck. Anyway.
And one final point from a career standpoint, again, just remember, you are the leader here. To your point about when we were talking about my reps, like leading from a sense of gratitude is a great place. I'm sorry to get political, but I just want to say, I was on TikTok the other day and some woman was like, you got to tell me right now. I want to know, why are you voting for Kamala? Why are you voting for Kamala? One reason, and there was so many responses, but at the end of the day, I just don't want, like, from a leadership standpoint, forget policy for a moment. Leadership, that is not a leader. No, that's not what a leader. And so, in my opinion, a leader is someone who has gratitude and a sense of grace. And is that Kamala? Maybe not 100%, but is it more than Trump? 100%. I mean, Pickle Rick or whatever his name is will have more gratitude. The cat will have more gratitude than Donald Trump. And so I just say this though, because if we are employers, we are leading our teams, we are leading representation, we're leading our self-produced projects. Think about the kind of leader you want to be for the people you want to be leading.
But fear is I mean, just to talk about Trump, I mean, really, it's like, because it relates in the sense that, look, his whole campaign is built on fear.
Sure.
And many politicians have done it. He's not new at that, but he's a master of fear mongering.
Hitler did it too.
Hitler did it too. And he is a master of fear.
Yeah.
And
One could argue
And
fear being lack of what you don't have, lack of
sure,
gratitude.
sure,
Look,
sure. And
you
look,
you shouldn't be grateful.
now look, I think there is a balance between rose-colored glasses when things are not good and
Yes,
acknowledging issues that
yes,
exist. That look, because the other thing he did was he brought attention to things that mainstream politicians were not bringing attention to. Just to give credit there, like for better or for worse, he was bringing those issues to the forefront. But the reason why I agree with you is because his whole campaign is based on fear. It's all fear mongering, and a lack of hope. American Carnage. That's the fucking that's very influential, probably the most influential speech in the past 50 years. In a policy. It's like in politics, and fear is very powerful. Fear is very powerful, and I think that one thing that is coming up for me consistently in this conversation is that is what we are fighting against. We are fighting against fear, and we are fighting against that is the opposite of gratitude in so many ways, because yeah, whatever. But
and
I don't know,
again,
bro.
just to, reflecting on like, so what kind of leader do I want to be? I also just want to say gratitude from a creative standpoint, because then we want to talk a little about how you can practice gratitude more regularly.
Yeah.
But working from a place of gratitude for your creative work, a lot of similar themes in terms of building a positive headspace, staying motivated, i.e., per your point about that place, must be tricky to go into and probably the most important thing for me, working relationships are important and any staying positive, but when it comes to creativity, I I am terrified of negativity
Yeah. Well, it stops
because
everything.
stops everything. And a lack of gratitude has the ability to do that, because staying gratitude allows you to open your creative mind up to possibility, because you do become solution driven. You become curious. What can I do? So you get a note, and as opposed to like, oh, fucking idiot doesn't fucking get it. It's like, okay, well, grateful to have an outside eye, because I'm not the master of all, and I could, use some objectivity and some consideration. And so, what is that? How does this challenge allow for me to think about how I could better this moment? Oh, but I really liked making my entrance over there, and that's really
They
okay.
don't get it. Yeah, all this shit.
Well,
Well,
there's a
it's
reason.
interesting.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, this is the final point about the leadership thing I want to say before I talk about
You
your thing.
hold
Is
your
I
mic up to
realized
your
what I was
mouth.
the thing about the leadership thing that I realized I was trying to say was when I say fear is powerful, it's a powerful motivator. And look, this is like an end justify the means. If you're only an ends driven person and not a values driven person, if you're an ends driven person, a result driven listen, fear will get you far. Fear will get you far. But at what cost? This is why there are some people who have everything and they're miserable. It's because, I say this from a leadership standpoint because it's like, listen, fear is a very great way to corral people, corral energy, go towards goals. It's a great way in terms of its effectiveness. But the question one needs to ask themselves is at what cost? At what cost? What is lost through that process? And so that is why fear is tempting, is because fear gets things done. Fear does
Sure.
get things done. And so if you're only a goals and ends driven person, it is very easy to let fear drive you because it's a good motivator. But again, at what cost? But the point I want to make about the work and creative work, I think it's a great point. And for me, I always do my pre-show practice involves a lot of gratitude. I don't emotionally prep. I don't do any of that stuff. I practice gratitude because, I do a lot of gratitude practice before I go on stage. And the reason why is because then I can trust and I can let go. My biggest issue as an actor personally, and I think it's a lot of people's, is control. Is not trusting that I got it. Blocking choices, whatever the fuck, the invisible work, all of the prep is there. And now it is time for me to let go and not try and force those things into reality, but trusting that it's there, right? It's like, that's scary to take a leap and go, I think I know this speech, or I think I know these lines, but I'm not going to think about it, and so just fucking like, that's a leap of faith.
Sure.
And so gratitude for me, what it allows me to do in creative work is trust myself. If I am practicing gratitude, I can trust that when I get a note that, and I'm grateful for it, and I take the moment to honor it in my head, that it will be addressed without me trying to because there's nothing worse when you're acting than being hyper aware of what you're doing. I mean, I think that that's like the death.
Of course.
And so it's like, yeah, gratitude for me allows me to let go and surrender more as an artist. But okay, so we're talking a lot about gratitude. How do we practice it?
Yeah. Let's talk about just a few considerations for how you could begin to practice more gratitude in your day-to-day.
Right. And this is based off of some reading, but this first one, before we even go there, I think we're talking a lot about intention today. Why? Getting really clear about why we want to practice gratitude in the first place. This could be through journaling, a journaling exercise, meditation, whatever the fuck. But again, before we just go, okay, I practice gratitude, I got to do that. Jumping there, because this is how you get forced, contrived gratitude, I guess I would call it, is why. Why is it important to be grateful? Why are we doing it? Are we doing it because, we want to be more present, because we want to reduce stress in our lives? Is it because we want to have deeper relationships with people, right? Or are we doing it so that we can get ahead, right? So kind of acknowledging and finding that reason that, and just giving that reason will again now imbue this practice with just more importance, with more meaning, with more intention, whatever. So I think that's a very important step. And then I do think that this next step is really important. I think it's something that I really, I should do this more. I try to journal more. I've been journaling a lot more, but it's like journaling on your emotions semi-consistently. So that could be daily, that could be weekly, that could be monthly, whatever. But being able to recognize what you're feeling. And because I think one of the number one reasons why I have a lack of gratitude is because I'm on an autopilot. I'm on a default. I don't even realize that I'm being negative. I don't even realize that I'm operating from a place of lack. I don't even realize that I'm scared, that I'm terrified, that I'm angry, or whatever the fuck it is. I don't even know what the fuck it is I'm feeling. I'm just reacting. I'm just moving through life and reacting, so I think like an important step is building an awareness of how we are feeling. That? Yeah.
I think that's a good point. I think this is a good point about, journaling and sort of identifying where you're at. Where do you think that comes from? Whether yourself or other people, like that idea, like where we a bit go into autopilot. What causes that in your opinion?
I think it's not to take it back to you, but I think it's kind of what you said at the beginning. I don't have time. I have things I want to do. I have things I want to get done. I'm just moving through, barreling through to get what I want out of life. And I think that's a large part of it, at least for me, is that, I don't feel like I have the time or the luxury to sort of look at myself and be curious about what's going on, because it feels like it's taking me off track, or it's taking me away from doing something productive or doing something. Yeah.
And let me build off of that for a second, because I want to go back to morning and evening routines as part of this. Because part of the question is like, when does this happen? Right?
Sure.
And I think, I don't know if this is true for you, but for example, this morning. Okay, so the macro question I'm having is: does sometimes routine or or specifically the idea of a morning routine and evening routine, where one would assume that this would primarily be happening, is sort of like outside of the
Yes.
bounds of, does it feel too like structured and I'm working? And the reason partially why I'm saying this is like I woke up this morning, right? Wake up this morning around 7, and typically I like to read the paper in the morning, the failing New York Times, but really one of the things, and I hope this diatribe brings us back and keep me on track if I get too loosey goosey, but one of the things is that I find if I don't exercise first thing in the morning, that next thing I know, it's 6 and I'm like, oh, but now dinner's going to take so long to, okay. So what am I saying? So then this morning I was good. I got my workout in. Okay. What's my point in relation to journaling and doing this check-in? Well, when's our downtime, right? Does it feel like those kinds of healthy practices?
Well, you just said it.
routines?
I mean, look. I personally, and look, it's whatever works. But the argument would be why probably instead of picking up that New York Times, a better use of your energy might be to actually journal on how you're feeling. Is again, stillness. As immediately going to input. As before, immediately filling yourself with shit, whatever,
Right.
good shit, bad shit, whatever.
Right.
Is there value in actually being still before any input data comes in and taking inventory of what's going on before you then invite other things into your life? I mean, I see value in that. I mean, because I would argue like it's why people say don't pick up your phone right away. It's the same thing.
Right.
Whether it's reading
Right.
up, you could be reading a book on World War II or self-development or whatever, or looking at your phone. Well, certainly I think is more quote useful than the other, but it's still input. So
Yeah.
I could see value in a morning routine consisting of taking 10 minutes to
Absolutely.
just go, how am I feeling before I
Yes.
invite any other shit into anything else into my life?
Yes.
What is going on? How am I feeling? Sitting with silence, sitting with yourself so that you can build that awareness. Because partially why, I mean, look, this is why everybody has fucking ADHD, is because part of the reason why I think this is difficult to answer your question, to acknowledge how we're feeling, is because we're constantly inundated with fucking data.
Yeah.
It's and I'm gonna, okay, really quick. There's this whole opinion. The guy who started BuzzFeed, I forgot his name. He wrote this very famous paper for MIT when he was a student there in the 90s about technological developments in schizophrenia, and basically, he saw schizophrenia as basically a lack of time to process, because you don't have time to process and work on an identity, on what he would call an identity project. An identity is made up. There's no such thing as an identity. It's a made up conception of ourselves, right? It's an image we have of ourselves in the world. And the problem with input, constant input, is every 3 seconds, whether it's an ad on my phone, whether it's, a text message, whether it's a book I'm reading, I don't have the time to actually solidify things I'm taking in and have a stronger sense of self, of who I am, what I'm feeling, my interaction, who I am in the world, my interaction with my environment, because I'm not giving myself time.
Sure.
All I'm doing is taking an input. So I would
Yeah.
argue that a journaling on your emotions in a vacuum almost, before you go throughout your day and you experience a billion input points, taking that time to just go, who am I right now? What am I feeling right now? Acknowledging your experience right now is valuable. And by the way, a key point of this too is without judgment. This is probably another reason why people don't take time to acknowledge how they're feeling, is because they have connotations around these emotions, which is
Avoiding.
I'm not avoiding. Exactly. 100%. I'm
course.
avoiding the dread. I'm avoiding the anger. I'm
Yes.
avoiding the sadness. And,
Yes.
there's gratitude to be had in those things too. There's gratitude to be had in those things too. And so I think a key part of this is to acknowledge how you're feeling without judgment, becoming more comfortable with who you are, what you're feeling, what your experiences is in life, so that
Yes.
you approach these things from a more earnest,
Well, I didn't
authentic
say it
state.
earlier, but I do think, and it was more in relation to art, but I do think practicing gratitude brings you closer to a sense of authenticity, per your point, because then
Yes.
you really have to do that reflecting. Okay, what are other ways that
Well,
people could
this is the
practice
most
gratitude?
obvious way that most people are going to be familiar with, and is gratitude journaling. This is
What's the difference between
this.
journaling and gratitude journaling?
I would say that the beginning journal, the first journaling I talked about is acknowledging your emotions or doing an
Mm.
inventory. Basically, doing an inventory. The first version is an inventory, which is no intention, no method, no contriving, no forcing, just starting where you are. But then when you have to do a gratitude journal, that's work. That's energy. It's what we've been talking about this whole time. So one is I would say the first thing is an inventory that we just talked about. And then this is a gratitude list, which is okay. Now, I think the easiest way to do this is probably to start a day with an inventory, or ending a day with or doing both simultaneously, doing an inventory and then doing a gratitude list right after. But, a gratitude list is listing out 3 things, being very detailed, that you can be grateful for in this moment.
Yes,
And
great.
again,
Love that.
this is the most common. This is not news to anybody. But I think what's important about this is creating. I like the way this was worded, which is I'm grateful for to not be on the streets or whatever the fuck. Be detailed. I think the intention around a gratitude journal, a gratitude list, whenever you list a gratitude, is you want to create that experience for yourself. So if it's just like grateful for my mom, that doesn't that could bring up something, but how do I, when I write out that gratitude, make it as detailed as possible, and imagery, whatever the fuck, specific examples where I can actually experience the whole point in this moment, is so that you can experience it. So that, which I never thought about before. I always saw it, when I was in recovery or whatever, I would gratitude list and it felt like a chore. It's like, let me get it out. It's like, no, I actually want to actively make the experience for myself. I want to actually, so let me, in my writing of these gratitudes, my intention should be to summon that feeling. And if I have to if it takes 2 sentences for a gratitude or a page, I should write enough where I can actually boom, feel that feeling.
Okay,
Right?
good.
That should be my intention. Does that
Like
make
it.
sense?
Makes sense.
And then, I like this one too, which is, this is something we've been taught, practicing gratitude in relationships.
We talked a little bit
Expressing
about this.
Yeah, we did. And is a useful practice. Could be, I need to express one gratitude a day.
Yeah.
You know, I need to express one gratitude a day out of the blue. It could be a text, could be a phone call, could be any, could be in rehearsal, could be to your partner, whatever, but challenging yourself. And again, I think that we can start small. I don't think that needs to be every day. Let's do it, but it's like, do you build this practice 3 times a week for yourself?
Yes.
But it's like, every week I need to express a gratitude to at least one person. Let's just say that. Take the
Yes.
time to express a gratitude and put myself out there. I think that could be a great way to do this. Another great way to express gratitude. And, tracking, as with everything, and let me just say this, I feel like it is important to write down a process for yourself. So it could be like, okay, every day I'm going to have a 30-minute practice when I wake up in the morning where I'm going to journal. I'm just going to do an inventory, and then I will do an inventory for 15 minutes, and then I'll take 15 minutes to do a gratitude. And then when I go to bed, I'll do a 15-minute inventory, and then I will do a gratitude or whatever the fuck it is. And every day I want to express a gratitude to one person. So make your own schedule. You could schedule this time out in terms of like, 3 1-hour chunks or 3 30-minute chunks or 3 15-minute chunks a week, whatever the fuck. Something's better than nothing, But then whatever system you have laid out for yourself, whatever practice you have laid out for yourself and decided upon, it's important to, at the end of a certain, a month of doing that, how little or as much, how big or as little this practice is, to just go, well, to notice and to have awareness, like I'll just say something right now. There's a lot of value. I do morning pages pretty consistently now. I write 3 pages in the morning, freehand, a la Artist's Way. And I do it, but I haven't actually taken the time. I've been doing it pretty consistently for like 2 months, but it's like, I haven't actually gone, wait. Let me just stop and go, what has this been doing for me? And it's been doing a lot for me. It does actually, I enjoy it and all this shit. But actually taking the time to stop, reflect, solidifies the thing in your mind. Validates, if the thing is working, it will solidify in your mind as something that is working, that is good, not just a feeling, not just purely a feeling based thing. Right. And if something is not working, you can acknowledge why it is not working and, of course, improve if needed in some way or find something else or whatever. But that is the importance of, it's so easy with any habit to get into a flow of it, whether it's the gym. I mean, this is the biggest problem I've had with the gym is that, I get into a flow with working out, but I don't actually take the time to go to validate it, to validate it in my head, to give that positive reinforcement in my head of like, this is good, this is working.
What does it represent for you?
What does what represent for me?
Well, instead of that, what does it become? What is it?
Instead of what? Sorry.
Instead of validating, oh, this is what this is for you, what does something like the gym represent?
Well, I think it's any habit. I'm using this for any habit you're building because that's what we're talking about, is building a practice, a habit, whatever. You're entering a reactionary mode where it's like when you can actually take a space, when you get into a habit, you get into a flow with something. If you are not taking the time to reflect on it, then it's losing its power, so that when the next thing when the thing that takes you off the habit or whatever the fuck it is, or you lose that flow or lose that energy, you haven't taken the time to actually acknowledge what was good about it and also use that as a motivation. I think a big reason why there's a lack of reflection is the same thing why there's a lack of gratitude, or a lack of acknowledging one's feelings. Reflection requires stillness, space, and there is no immediate payoff to it. It requires space to reflect. And there's so much shit that needs to happen. There's so much shit I have to do. And again, taking the time to remove yourself and stop and be in stillness and listen to yourself is scary. Because it's not immediately rewarding. It's not immediately generating whatever the fuck we want from the world. So, right. I think that, and also we figure, I'm in the flow, I don't need to stop. If you're in the flow, taking a minute to just go, well, yeah, I've been working out consistently for 3 months. What's been working about that? You feel like you don't have to do that because you're doing the thing. But the next thing you know, it's 2 months later and you're done. So it's like, it's hard to, while the flow is going, to just go, yeah, this is working. This is good. We take it for granted, which is a big thing with gratitude in general. It's like when you're working on a fucking play, I'm taking for granted that I'm getting paid to act and just take that as a fucking given. It's whatever, but I don't know.
Yes, no, I love all those practices. Period. So, this is, we're grateful for you, listeners, truly, in terms of keeping us buoyed and validated. I see Mike has highlighted what are we most thankful for.
We don't have to answer that. I don't know.
I'm most grateful for you, Mike. You're my gratitude. No, but happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I like Thanksgiving. I do.
Oh, it's my favorite. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
mm,
I think
Still
I'm.
my favorite holiday.
It's one of my favorites. I don't know what I'm gonna. I really want to take it on myself. If I'm down, if we extend to actually, I think I do kind of want to host Thanksgiving here, and I want to try and make a Thanksgiving
Oh,
meal.
nice. That's
I think
fun.
I want to do that. I want to try it. I want to try that. I want to try. I want to try it. I want to try it.
What do you mean? As opposed, you want to try hosting?
Yeah, like cooking the turkey, cooking the stuffing.
Yeah, fun.
I
like that.
I want to try that. I want to try that.
Okay, folks. So comfort food performances. For those of you who don't know,
God.
comfort food
Jesus
performances.
Christ.
I know. Just say Sly Stallone or something. Comfort food performances. Every episode, we name a notable performance that in Mike's mind is something you come back to over and over again, and in my mind is just something you loved. But actually, this kind of actually is a true comfort food performance for me. I watch Matilda all the time. I love Matilda.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And Pam Ferris as Mrs. Trunchbull. Wow!
Oh, she's great.
Wow!
Yeah, she's really great. That's a great performance. That's an Oscar-worthy performance.
That is an Oscar-worthy performance.
Yeah.
Something so bold for the screen, but still so grounded. And Pam Ferris is Mrs. Trunchbull in the Danny DeVito directed Matilda is absolutely a comfort food performance.
That's a good one. That is a good one. Okay. My comfort food performance.
We should. I'm going to share my note with you for you to have on your phone
once prepped. Yeah. I mean, you know what I want to watch again? Because I remember loving this movie. Have you ever seen Death to Smoochie?
Long time ago.
Yeah. I feel like that is definitely a comfort food. It's been a while, but I used to watch them. I used to love that movie. But, the performances in that. Danny DeVito is Danny DeVito, what a fucking genius. I mean, we just forget that dude, writes, stars, directs movies.
Totally.
He's a fucking, what a sneaky fucking, genius. But, I mean, Edward Norton, but I will say Edward Norton in Death to Smoochie.
Okay, well here's why I have to here's why I have to watch it, because I just watched Red Dragon, which is the prequel to Silence of the Lambs.
That's Ray Fiennes in that movie. That's a comfort food. Ray Fiennes is pretty fucking amazing.
Yes, he is. You know who's not good?
Who?
Edward Norton.
Really? Yeah.
You have to watch. You have to watch it.
I've seen it many times. What don't you like about Edward Norton's performance?
Literally, there's nothing. Someone could tap him on the shoulder and be like, "Hey, sorry to interrupt your day, but I found these test results. You are HIV positive," and his response could be, "Oh, okay."
It's funny. I think that's the guy, though. It's funny. Let me just say, the only thing I'd argue is that I think that's the guy. The guy is kind of a sociopath.
So why do you mention Ray Fiennes? Why? Because Ray Fiennes is giving a gorgeous performance. He's actually.
He has a much more interesting character than Edward Norton does. He's playing a fucking cleft-lipped,
if I may,
psychopath.
What's her name? Not Holly Hunter. What's her name?
Mary Louise Parker's in it.
No. Silence of the Lambs. She's better than Edward Norton.
Jodie Foster. Yes.
Jodie Foster, who I would argue is the same track. Jodie Foster gives a dynamic, complex, interesting, motivated performance.
So you're not an Edward Norton fan?
I actually think Edward Norton's a great actor. What I'm saying, I was actually really surprised at how boring his performance was.
What I like about Ed Norton, he's just kind of, I do like that he's always him, kind of in some ways. He's never really, I would argue, and he is kind of this quirky, not optimistic, but he has just, his energy is just very. I think he has an inherently interesting, quirky, in some ways, I can't describe his energy because he's such an interesting actor to me. Which, by the way, speaking of secondary income, do you see what his whole fucking thing is now? Oh my God. Well, Edward Norton, of all fucking actor, I would argue like actor, Edward Norton. He runs like I have to look into it, but it's fucking important. What's this fucking business he runs? It's like for startups. He basically Edward Norton business. Now you'll find this interesting, and I've wanted to talk to you about this. I think I might have Zek, a cloud-based software for platform for board meetings to make board meetings more efficient and effective by modernizing board decks. It's called Zek. So isn't that fucking crazy that Edward, and the reason why I say because I'm constantly seeing ads, him talking about this shit. I mean, Edward fucking Norton. I mean, what has he done recently? He did Glass Onion, I guess, or whatever. But Death to Smoochie, circling back. Death to Smoochie, I remember loving his performance because he plays like this overly earnest guy. He's basically like Barney. He basically is like a Barney character, and he has this character named Smoochie that's Barney. And he's like this very innocent, childlike, like very positive. Like I think he might be like overly Christian or something, but he has that like sort of like Leave It to Beaver energy, but he has that dark element that he brings also. And it's just a very funny he's just a very funny performance. There's like many like really genius comedic moments in that movie from him.
I put it on the to watch list.
I might watch it tonight, honestly. It's such a good movie. Anyway.
Thanks, friends, for being our friends. We're grateful for you. Happy tea giving.
We're not alone. Goodbye. Hey, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Creative Risk. If you've enjoyed, please don't forget to like, subscribe here on YouTube, follow our channel, or follow us on your favorite podcast app. A quick review on Apple Podcasts, like we said, would mean the world to us. We read them all, as I said. And if you want to go deeper, join our Patreon community starting at just $5 a month for exclusive content, motivation, and a supportive community. Check out patreon.com/Creative Risk Podcast, and we'll see you next time.